Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Remain. Good morning, Vimbai.
Good morning, Lady in Royal Blue.
Hey, what can we say? Good morning, Rufai. How are we doing?
Fair move.
Yeah, today's my mom's birthday, so I think the song is extra fitting. Happy birthday, mommy. Yes.
Today is also the birthday of Professor Isiaq Oloyede,
Oh,
the
look at that.
registrar of the Joint
October
Admissions
babies.
Matriculation Board.
Definitely.
So congratulations to your mom.
Thank you.
Congratulations to
him
Professor
too.
Oloyede.
Absolutely.
But having announced your mom's birthday,
There are what?
you know that, right?
All righty, let's get on with the World Brief this morning. Kemi Badenoch has made it through to the final round of the Conservative Party leadership race after receiving 42 out of 120 votes ahead of Robert Jenrick with 41 votes. But in a surprise twist, former Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, who won the previous round of voting, was eliminated from the round with 37 votes. Now, the shock result announced in Parliament was met with gasps from some who had expected Cleverly to get through to the last two after he had delivered a well-received speech at the party's conference last week and topped the ballot of MPs in the third round on Tuesday. Now, Badenoch, a former business secretary, and Jenrick, a former Home Office minister, had been seen as appealing to the right of the party, with Cleverly representing those nearer to the centre. Now, the final two candidates will now be put to Conservative Party members, with the result due on the 2nd of November. Moving on to the United States now, in what is believed to be their first dialogue in weeks, U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu talked over the phone. The pair thought of discussed Israel's response to Iran's missile attack last week amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said Israel's retaliatory attack against Iran will be deadly, precise, and above all, surprising. Now, the White House said U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris also joined in on that call on Wednesday, although details of what was discussed are yet to be released specifically. Now, Netanyahu also spoke to Donald Trump during a call last week. Staying with U.S. politics, and Democratic Vice Presidential hopeful Tim Walz has waded into the party's long-term discontent with the Electoral College. Now, Democrats have won the popular vote in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections, but have not won the Electoral College on each of those occasions. Now, their most recent and possibly most bitter defeat being back in 2016, when Hillary Clinton secured nearly 3 million more votes than Donald Trump, but narrowly lost out on critical swing states. Now, a very quick mention on the 2024 campaign. Fox News has proposed another presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on either the 24th or the 27th of October, but it's unclear if Trump is willing to participate, especially since he says early voting has already started in some states. Staying in the United States once more, and Hurricane Milton has made landfall in the west central coast of Florida, where President Joe Biden had previously warned millions of people under evacuation orders that the situation is a matter of life and death. Milton is a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. It's expected to remain an extremely dangerous major hurricane. The storm is also expected to generate life-threatening storm surges, damaging winds, and flooding rains. And lastly, we did talk about this earlier in the week, looking ahead to it, but vote counting is actually underway in Mozambique after a largely peaceful election, which is expected, according to some polls, to keep the ruling Frelimo party in power, which has been the status quo in the southern African country since 1975. The favourite to replace incumbent President Felipe Nyusi is the 47-year-old Daniel Chapo. Official results can take up to 2 weeks before being announced, and any disputed outcome could trigger protests similar to those which broke out in Mozambique after Frelimo swept last year's municipal elections, which were forcibly suppressed.
Couple of things. So it's obvious now that the Eurosceptics have really hijacked, the former Eurosceptics, or the Brexiteers as they are now, the very far-right people, have really hijacked the Conservative Party.
Yes.
I was surprised. I mean, I didn't think that Kemi Badenoch was going to go up that way, but she did well. And I think probably the reason why she did well was because James Cleverly was more in the center of the party and wanted to balance things, and that didn't sail with most of these people. But it's going to go to the general vote. You've got Robert Denrick and Kemi Badenoch. Let's say it pounds out for her. If she gets it, it's going to be the first one. But I disagree with Kemi constantly bashing immigrants because of our own political...
I mean, we can see it's working out for her.
And it might be working out for you, but the most important thing is you'll never be white. The moment Kemi understands that, the better it is for her. Yeah. You will never be white. No matter how much you play this politics, you play this game, you can still play this game with a lot of dignity rather than bashing your own people. And that's my grouse against Kemi. So let's say it pans out. If she can tip the ballot or tip the balance and everything, good. She might well on her way becoming the first black female Prime Minister of Britain.
And I would be very surprised. You remember the last time you were here, Vimbai, I did say that I didn't see the prospect of her becoming party leader, likely.
I mean, I'll be surprised. I'll see when the votes come down to the wire.
November 2nd.
November 2nd. Ooh. Secondly, but the other question is, will the Tory party be ready for two leaderships that are people of minority ethnic inclinations? That's the big question. If the Tory party is ready for that, that means Britain is shifting. Secondly, as regards the electoral college, yes, we've always seen it. I think even Hillary's case was not even very bitter. For me, the very bitter electoral college case was that 2000 elections. The Al Gore case.
You think so too?
Yeah. Remember? Oh yeah, it was Florida tipped the balance. And it was very neck and neck. And we all know what the Republicans did there. We know what the likes of Roger Stone did at the recount in Florida. Because those elections went down to the wire till this. I think it was about till December before they knew who finally had taken the day.
Right.
That was very bitter. And some people have also indicated that that the role of Ralph Nader, the consumer activist that ran in that election, was a big spoiler and all of that. And also the fact that, what's his name now, Al Gore didn't allow Clinton campaign with him, because Clinton was just coming out of the heels of the Monica Lewinsky scandal then, and all of that. But that's a good argument made, but I don't think the Electoral College will change. I think the Democrats will learn to live through the Electoral College, because when it favors them also, it favors them. And it's a winner-take-all system. I know that's the pain they feel.
Absolutely. Still on the Electoral College, I think it's quite profound that, as much as we look at the United States as, sort of the bastion of democracy and so forth, that there's still clamor for electoral reform for people. So this is a wonderful message to, especially those of us in emerging economies, developing nations, that, this process is an ongoing process. It's a dynamic process. When you look at the history of the Electoral College from the founding fathers of the Constitution, they actually tell you that the Electoral College was a very shaky compromise between those who wanted the popular vote and those who wanted representative voting. So, you now ask yourself, since the 1800s, is it still relevant in a modern day democracy? So that's on that. But still on elections to Mozambique, of course, very close to my heart, neighbor to Zimbabwe. The conversation there is a theme that we're seeing across Africa, which is that are African youth becoming to feel a discontent towards the so-called liberators? And it shines through even here in Nigeria. We're looking at people who we saw as the advocates of, democracy and freedom and so forth. And we're seeing that feeling towards them that maybe this is not quite what we signed up for with regards to this group of people. Daniel Chapo, who is representing the ruling party Frelimo, is just 37 years old. So he's the first candidate.
47.
47, excuse me. And he's the first candidate to be born after independence, the born frees, as we call them. And that is very massive. For countries like Mozambique, there's a relationship between Frelimo of Mozambique, ZANU-PF of Zimbabwe, ANC of South Africa, SWAPO of Namibia. These are all the liberators who've held on to power. And the question is, have they reformed their parties and their movements enough? And is the sentiment around, there are liberators, still strong enough for people to still want to align with them? This narrative around, the colonizer and this and that, which is, of course, has its own merits. But now people are really looking at the tangible dividends of democracy. So really, following, Frelimo's probably going to win, right? But, the conversation around the reform around liberation parties, I think, is really the focus for me for the Mozambican election.
Okay, let me start with the Electoral College in the United States, which has been the pattern that has been used for centuries, if I may say so, in the United States by the founding fathers to ensure, that electors are also recognized in terms of congressional representation. So it's an electoral college system that they have used. To change that, you will need 2/3 of the votes from the House and also from the Congress, and 3/4 of acceptance among the states. So it's a long shot. Tim was saying he wants the electoral college to end, may not get what he wants. But the more important thing also is that if you want to change the electoral college system, you will have to amend the Constitution. Then, if you don't do that, there's something they call the National Popular Vote Compact in the United States. Now, they will need up to 270 electoral college interventions by the states to get that. And that will also be very difficult to get. Now, as governor of Minnesota, Tim was, signed up to that compact. So those are the two ways in which you can effect a change. But for now, what we know is that the Democratic Party, in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections since 1992, has always won the popular vote and has not necessarily won electoral college vote. Now, Hillary Clinton in 2016, Al Gore in the year 2000. Now, for you to win in the United States, the electoral college is about the battleground states: Nevada, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Dakota. So those are the states that are very critical. So Tim Walz, however, has been advised by our principal to be careful with what he says. This was how he went and he was mistalking, about Tiananmen Square in 1989. And then Kamala Harris, speaking on ABC The View, said, I've told him to be careful, about what he says. However, the main point, to summarize in that regard, is that he has been disowned by the campaign, by the Kamala Harris campaign, that they are not saying there should be no, electoral college. And the Trump campaign has called him Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim, they call him. That's that about that. In Mozambique, whether you like it or not, Daniel Chapo will win. Frelimo has held on to power in that state, in that country since 1975. Voting ended yesterday by 6 p.m. And counting started. The counting will take about 2 weeks. At the end of the day, we don't know. The election was peaceful, according to European Union observers, African Union, and local observers. Correct. But in Mozambique, what we have seen is that the dispute will start during the counting process, as it happened during the municipal elections last year. There's Mondlane, 4 leading candidates. There's Mondlane, who is very popular with the youths. Will he get there? There is former rebel leader, Usufo Monade. He also doesn't stand a chance. There is Lutero Samango, who is considered an outsider. But, the odds seem to favor Daniel Chapo. Now, as for the UK, well, our sister, Kemi Badenoch, on Tuesday was third or so, when Tongenhart was pushed out of the race. But now, when the final vote was taken, she shot to the top of the race. And then Jenrick, and surprisingly, cleverly, who is right at the center, was pushed out. So whatever happens by November 2, it means that a popular far-right person, whether it's Jenrick or it's Kemi Badenoch, will emerge as the Labour candidate. And that is it.
The Tory candidate.
Yes, Milton and Fall were very unfortunate. I always talk about this conflict between man and nature. 5th, hurricane crisis in the United States. The 3rd in Florida this year. Roofs blown up. Electricity disconnected for 2 million people. A lot of crisis. Water supply suspended. People were asked to evacuate from the south of it. And some people were saying they will not leave. That they will stay and be there. Sister Key, south of the Tampa Bay, was the first place where the crisis erupted, the landfall. Winds at about 58 to 100 miles per hour. Well, we don't know what to say. This is coming after Hurricane Helen 2 weeks ago, in which 252 people died. More people have died now. man and nature.
Indeed. Let's hope as many people as possible stay safe over in Florida. Let's move on very quickly to our newspaper headlines, and we begin in Nigeria with the front page of This Day newspaper. And 17 months after President Tinubu made the announcement, subsidy is gone, says the front page of This Day. This is as the NNPC sells petrol for 1,030 naira per litre in Abuja and for 998 naira per litre here in Lagos. Oil marketers have also confirmed the return of competition in the downstream sector. And with this latest price adjustment, it means that in the less than 17 months of this current administration, the price of fuel has risen by over 430% from May 29, when President Tinubu took the reins of power. Staying on the theme of deregulation, and a new Telegraph reports that transporters promptly have hiked transport fares as the NNPCL once again adjusts the PMS price upwards. Nigeria's National Labour Congress says this latest hike will only impoverish Nigerians. And the response from the NLC makes the front page of the Daily Trust as it demands a price hike reversal. But there is also to the bottom of the front page a story which looks at the struggle to access mental health care in Nigeria. Their investigations reveal 85% of Nigerians cannot access adequate care, and the high cost of care, inadequate facilities, personnel, and the non-implementation of the Mental Health Act 2 years after it was passed are some of the challenges hampering access to mental health care in Nigeria. As Nigeria, of course, joins the rest of the world to mark this year's World Mental Health Day. Experts have also called on the government and all stakeholders to increase efforts towards addressing these challenges. The theme of this year's commemoration is mental health at work. And I pray we all have some mental health at work. Now, moving on to The Guardian, it also features the World Mental Health Day. Its headline says that frustration and hardship sinks more Nigerians into depression. Health facilities see a 200% rise in mental health cases. And its graphic on the front page shows life expectancy is at 56 and lists poverty, unemployment, and the fact that more Nigerians are needing to borrow in order to be able to afford to eat have all contributed to these mental health problems. The Punch features a story on police operatives in Enugu who have apprehended a doctor over allegations of child trafficking and forgery. This is happening in Udenu local government area. Now, the spokesperson for the Enugu State Police confirmed the arrest in a statement issued on Wednesday. According to that statement, officers from his command that focus on kidnapping and tactical operations, they say that they took that doctor into custody last month. Let's move on to our African papers. The Daily Graphic of Ghana continues to look at illegal mining, but to the top of the front page, there are also calls to prosecute those who were responsible for the killings during the 2020 presidential elections, especially if peace is supposed to be or ensured or wanted to be ensured during this December's elections. And then the Daily Nation of Kenya has the embattled Kenyan Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who has a tall order on his hands at the Senate. He has to convince at least 23 of the 67 MPs in the House to agree with him and save his job. And lastly, as we discussed during the World Brief, the Tory fight veers to the right as James Cleverly suffers a shock exit and Kemi Badenoch enjoys a slight lead over Generic as they head to the final round of the Conservative leadership race. And finally, the Financial Times has the UK's ruling Labour Party under the leadership of Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer paving the way to raising employers' national insurance contributions. Extra dues for businesses may also be raised. All of this in an effort to raise billions for Chancellor Rachel Reeves.
And that's to show you how politicians lie. These were all the things Keir Starmer evaded during the debate. You see why debate matters? He evaded all these things. And when Rishi was saying, these guys are going to put you under a big taxation regime, they cannot, cover up for all the things they say they're going to do. They cannot cover the cost. Then, a lot of people didn't believe Rishi. They just wanted the Conservatives out. But now you've seen, in fact, I predicted 6 months. Less than 6 months, it's fallen like a pack of cards. I didn't even know Mr. Ali, Ali the benefactor. Ali's gift was going to cause a lot of problems.
So much ruckus.
You can see now, Rachel Reeves says she needs money. The taxes he says he's not going to raise.
Right.
I'm not going to raise your taxes. I'm not going to. He only talked about those for private schools.
You know, it's so funny how these things ping pong. So we've gone from, okay, there's too much austerity under Sunak, so then we need a Labour government to restore these things.
And Labour is not behaving like Conservative.
And now we see the Tories are going to elect a far-right person at the helm.
The funny thing is that Labour is not behaving like Conservatives. And that's just it. And Tory is now fast becoming reform. It's sounding like Nigel Farage. I mean, these are the things we used to blame Nigel Farage for. That's what Kemi Badenoch is saying now, against our own people.
Well, as I said, it's helping her. It is helping her.
Yeah, well, talking about things that aren't really helping anybody, Rigi G, as they call him, that's Gachagua, the Kenyan vice president, in the fight for his life. Initially, I remember some people had advised him to resign, and I was watching an interview last night where they were saying it may have been easier for him to actually just resign because he's now going to have to see this fight to the very end. Highly likely, of course, that the Senate is going to go on and endorse an impeachment. So all eyes again are going to come back to the Kenyan judiciary, just like we do with every election cycle in Kenya. So it's most likely going to come down to the courts to decide whether this man will be impeached or stay in office. So again, we're going to keep our eyes on that, and we're going to see how the Kenyan judiciary, the Supreme Court namely, navigates through this unprecedented impeachment of a vice president in that country.
Okay. Today is Mental World Health Day,
yes.
October 10. It's been celebrated every year since 1992. And I think it's something that we have to emphasize. Now this year, they are emphasizing mental health at work. A lot of people at work are psychotic cases. And what are the indications? Absenteeism, unnecessary argumentation with their colleagues, depression, anxiety.
Where is that happening, Dr. Rubin?
No, we're talking about today.
Okay.
And the whole thing about World Mental Health Day is for people to seek help and for governments and institutions to support efforts towards people managing their health. Yes. Now, the hashtag is move for your mind. People to manage their mind, to be aware that they have mental health issues. And when they have mental health issues, let them seek help. It's just that the theme for this year is focusing on mental health at work. So people should not bring their personal issues to work, whether they are depressed.
Work should be a healthier place so that mental issues don't worsen in the workplace.
Okay, you have summarized it.
I think so.
Yeah, thank you.
Really? Can work really be that place?
It should be.
Yes.
In an ideal world.
The police,
absolutely.
they need mental help. Mental health work. The military, some of the soldiers who are shooting anyhow, they need mental health help. The politicians, they need mental health help.
They need a lot of mental health, especially the politicians.
Access to it.
Especially what's happening in River State. They need
we need, there's a lot of jobs for a lot of mental health. And laughter. Thank you, Dr. Abati, for giving us laughter. Very important for mental wellness.
Definitely a great remedy.
And Femi, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
So Femi,
all right.